Hear this. You're at some kind of networking event, maybe just a crowded bar.
Mm-hmm.
You're scanning the room, holding a drink, and suddenly you see them, the most attractive person you have ever seen in your life. I'm talking someone who looks like they just walked out of a magazine ad.
We've all had that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just stops you cold.
exactly. But here's the weird part. Before you've even said a word, before they've said a word, your brain starts writing a story about them.
Oh, absolutely.
You instantly decide that person is smart or that person must be incredibly kind.
They definitely volunteer on weekends.
Yes, you map out their entire moral character just based on their bone structure.
It's a fascinating glitch in how we operate, isn't it? We don't wait for any evidence. We just let the visual override everything else. We basically equate beautiful with good.
And it turns out there's a name for this. It's not just us being superficial. It's a documented psychological thing called the halo effect.
Right, the halo effect. It's a cognitive bias where one positive trait, and it's usually physical beauty or, extreme charisma, it creates this halo around a person.
And it sort of blinds you.
It does. It blinds us to their flaws and makes us assume they have all these other positive traits we haven't even seen. We just decide they're more deserving of love, more competent, maybe even morally superior.
It's a mental shortcut.
Yeah,
They look like a protagonist, so they must be the hero.
precisely. But this is where we need to, dig a little deeper, because while modern psychology gave it a catchy name, this is not a new problem. This is ancient. And if you trace this idea back, you realize that this halo isn't just a compliment, it can be a cage.
And that is our mission for today.
Mm.
We're going to take this psychological concept, trace it all the way back to its roots in Greek mythology, specifically the story of Adonis.
Yeah.
And then, and this is the part I'm really excited for, we're going to look at that myth through the lens of some really heavy-hitting philosophy. We're talking Immanuel Kant and the existentialists.
We are going to ruin the idea of pretty privilege for everyone today, because when you look at Adonis and then you look at Kant, you start to realize that being put on a pedestal is actually, well, it's a form of dehumanization.
Let's start with the myth itself, Adonis. I mean, the name today is literally synonymous with hunk.
Right.
If you call someone an Adonis, you mean they're physically perfect.
Yeah.
But in the original stories, it wasn't just that he was, cute.
No, it was something more dangerous. The myths describe his beauty as a force of nature. It wasn't passive. It was this gravitational pull that didn't just attract people, it attracted the gods.
And attracting the attention of the gods in Greek mythology is almost never a good thing.
It's like standing in a thunderstorm holding a lightning rod.
Exactly.
So enter Aphrodite, the goddess of love. She sees Adonis and she is just completely overcome. But it's really important to look at how she loved him. She didn't just see a partner, she saw...
The living embodiment of her brand.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. She saw beauty with a capital B. She became obsessed with protecting him, hiding him away, just keeping him close.
She wanted to bubble wrap him?
Essentially, yes. But, as is tradition in Greek tragedy, you can't protect someone from their fate. Adonis is a hunter. He goes out, gets gored by a wild boar, and he dies young.
Which, gruesome details aside, is a pretty standard tragic hero ending. But this is where the story gets really weird. Usually death is the end of the line. For Adonis, death was just the start of his legal troubles.
It's a custody battle.
Right, so his soul goes down to the underworld, and Persephone, the queen of the dead, sees him, and guess what?
Let me guess.
She falls in love with him too. So now you have the goddess of love up top screaming, he's mine, and the queen of the dead down below screaming, no finders keepers, he's mine.
And amidst all this chaos, where's Adonis in all this?
Well, he's lame.
Yeah.
He's just there, I guess.
He's silent. And that is the absolute crux of the issue. He stops being a person and becomes a subject of dispute. It apparently got so heated that Zeus had to step in just to prevent a war between the realms.
And Zeus, being the great mediator that he is, he comes up with a compromise. He rules that Adonis has to spend 1/3 of the year with Aphrodite, 1/3 with Persephone in the underworld, and the final third he gets to himself.
Though he usually just ends up spending that extra time with Aphrodite anyway, right?
That's what the stories say.
So basically a divine timeshare agreement.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here. Because I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, is that really so bad? I mean, yeah, the boar attack wasn't great. But the outcome, he's basically immortal. He's desired by two of the most powerful goddesses in the cosmos. He gets to live in paradise for spring and summer. Most people would kill for that.
And that is the paradox of privilege. It looks like a gift from the outside. But let's look closer. Zeus's decision determined Adonis's entire existence without Adonis ever being asked. His desires, his feelings, the life he might have wanted.
Maybe he didn't want to be with either of them.
Maybe. It was completely irrelevant.
So he's a trophy.
He's an object. This introduces a concept from philosophy called reification. It comes from the Latin word res, which means thing. It's the process of turning a human being with all their complexity and agency into a thing to be used.
It's like he became an NPC, a non-player character in his own life story.
That is a perfect analogy. Think about an NPC in a video game. They look like a person. They might walk around. They have lines of dialogue, but they have no free will. They exist solely to advance the plot for the main character.
Okay.
In this story, Aphrodite and Persephone are the main characters. Adonis is just the quest item they're fighting over.
That actually makes it sound terrifying. It's like a horror story disguised as a romance.
It is, and this brings us to a quote that really stuck with me from the source material. Being exempt from death is not the same as being granted life.
Oof. Let's do that again.
Being exempt from death is not the same as being granted life. Adonis is immortal, in a way. He comes back every spring. But he was never allowed to live a full life. He was always packing his bags, always split between two worlds. He was ruled by a calendar and by the emotional needs of others. He was a guest in his own body.
This feels like the perfect moment to bring in the big guns.
Mm-hmm.
We promised some philosophy, and I feel like Immanuel Kant would have a lot to say about this.
Kant would have been absolutely appalled by the story of Adonis.
I remember struggling through Kant in college, trying to memorize all the terms. But the big one was the categorical imperative, right?
Right. And while the categorical imperative has a few different formulations, the one that matters here is what he called the formula of humanity. Kant said, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end.
Okay, let's translate that out of 18th century German philosophy speak.
It means don't use people. Simple as that. You have to treat a human being as valuable in and of themselves, not because of what they can do for you or how they make you feel.
So if I'm dating someone just because they look good on my arm at a party, and that makes me feel successful,
then you're treating them as a means. You're using them as a prop to boost your own ego.
And that's exactly what the goddesses did.
Exactly. Aphrodite used Adonis to validate her own nature as the goddess of beauty. Persephone used him to possess something vibrant and alive in the land of the dead. Their whole conflict was about their wants, their status, their rivalry.
Adonis was the means. He was never the end.
And in Kant's view, that is a fundamental violation of human dignity. It strips the person of their humanity and turns them into a tool.
It's so interesting because when you think about objectification, we usually think of it in a negative way, like treating people like dirt. But here, they're treating him like a god. They are worshiping him.
And that's the trap. You can dehumanize someone by putting them on a pedestal just as easily as you can by throwing them in the mud. Because once someone is on a pedestal, they aren't allowed to move. They're not allowed to change. They're just an image.
Which leads us right to the existentialists. Because if there was one group of philosophers who hated the idea of being just an image, it was Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The existentialists were obsessed with freedom. Sartre had this famous phrase, existence precedes essence.
Okay, break that down for us. Existence precedes essence.
So, imagine you're building a house. A prefabricated house is built in a factory according to a blueprint, and then it's dropped onto the land. The essence, the design, the purpose, it exists before the house even gets there.
Got it.
Sartre says humans are not prefab houses. We are dropped onto the land first. We exist, and then we have to build the house ourselves, brick by brick, through our choices. We create our own essence.
We write our own script.
Exactly. But Adonis is a prefab house.
He's designed by the expectations of others before he ever had a chance to speak.
Correct. So the tragedy of Adonis, from an existentialist view, is that he was denied the fundamental human right to create his own meaning. He wasn't allowed to say, hey, I don't want to be a symbol of spring. I want to be an accountant.
Or, I don't want to date a goddess. I want to be single and work on my pottery.
Right. He was imprisoned inside the image that the world created for him.
And that's a kind of death, isn't it?
Sartre would argue that if you aren't making your own choices, you're not really existing. You're just a thing taking up space.
This is all getting uncomfortably relatable. Because obviously, we aren't Greek gods fighting over some guy. But the more you describe this prefab life, the more I feel like I see it everywhere.
You absolutely do. I mean, the most obvious modern parallel is celebrity culture.
Oh, for sure.
Think about a child star or a huge pop icon. We apply the halo effect instantly. We see them, we love them, we project all our fantasies onto them, we raise them up onto that pedestal.
And then we get so mad when they try to climb down.
We get furious if a pop star tries to change their musical style, or if an actor has a messy public breakdown, or if they just want to retire and disappear. The public reaction is often one of betrayal.
It's like, you belong to us. You are the image we fell in love with. How dare you be a complex, messy human being?
We want them to stay NPCs. We want them to say their lines and look pretty. We're doing to them exactly what Aphrodite did to Adonis. We're consuming them.
But it's not just celebrities, right? This happens in, like, offices and living rooms every day.
All the time. Think about the high-potential employee, the young superstar who joins a company. They're bright, charismatic, maybe good-looking, and management instantly tags them. This is a future leader.
The golden child.
The golden child. So they get put on the fast track. They're mentored by the VP. They get moved from department to department. You're going to fix marketing, then you're going to fix sales. They're passed around like a prize.
And everyone tells them how lucky they are. You're on the fast track. You'll be CEO by 40.
But did anyone? Yes. That sibling is on a pedestal. Sarah is the strong one. Sarah can handle it. That compliment is a cage. Sarah isn't allowed to break down. Sarah isn't allowed to be weak. Sarah has been reified into the caretaker, and her actual needs are ignored because the role she plays is just too convenient for everyone else.
It really changes how you view positive stereotypes. It makes you realize that even good assumptions can be incredibly heavy to carry.
Well, it's the difference between loving someone and consuming someone.
Break that down.
Consuming someone means you love how they make you feel or what they do for you. You're basically eating their identity to feed your own needs. Loving someone means letting them be an end in themselves. It means letting them have agency, even if that means they make choices you don't like or understand.
Even if it means they walk away from the pedestal you built for them.
Especially then. True love requires letting the other person be the main character of their own story, not just an NPC in yours.
That is beautifully put.
Yeah.
Wow. So if we kind of trace the map of where we've been today, we started with a psychological glitch, the halo effect, that makes us trust pretty people. Then we watched that same glitch destroy the life of a mythological hero.
Turning him into a timeshare property for goddesses? Then we saw how being honored can actually be a violation of Kantian ethics, and how having your life script written for you is the ultimate existentialist nightmare.
This got a lot heavier than I expected when we started talking about a handsome guy.
The myths are rarely just stories. They're warnings.
Warnings. I like that. So before we sign off, let's leave everyone with something to chew on. We talked about how Adonis was exempt from death, but not granted life. How do we turn that mirror on ourselves?
I think the challenge for you, for the listener this week, is to look for the honorary cages in your own life.
Honorary cages.
Yeah. Ask yourself, where are you being praised for something that is actually suffocating you? Are you the low-maintenance friend who never gets to express a need? Are you the always available employee? Are you standing on a pedestal right now that feels like a compliment but is actually preventing you from moving or changing or growing?
That is a terrifying question. Because it asks us to question the very things we might be proudest of.
Sometimes the applause is just the sound of the cage door locking.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to need to sit in silence for about 20 minutes after this. But I guess that's the point of a deep dive.
It is. Break the halo, find the person, and that includes yourself.
Thank you so much for breaking all this down with us today. This was really intense.
My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening. We hope this gave you a new perspective on beauty, on freedom, and the myths we're all still living by. We'll catch you next time.